A case for the 2030 U.S. Census Update subject. Petition to add Freedmen Americans as a distinct census category for the 2030 U.S. Census. Dear U.S. Census Bureau and Office of Management and Budget, I am writing to formally petition the U.S. Census Bureau and the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, to recognize Freedmen Americans as a distinct ethnic category on the 2030 U.S. Census and within all federal demographic data collection standards. Freedmen Americans are the direct descendants of black individuals who were enslaved in the United States and emancipated prior to or during the Civil War. This community represents a foundational American lineage, profoundly shaped by centuries of forced labor, racial apartheid, and systemic civic exclusion. Our ancestors were instrumental in building the economic and cultural infrastructure of this nation and led the early movements for civil rights. Yet, our unique heritage and identity remain invisible in federal statistics. Currently, the U.S. Census aggregates all black Americans into a single racial category, conflating vastly different histories and identities. This erasure of lineage distorts public understanding, limits effective policy solutions, and undermines efforts at reparative justice. Request for recognition and inclusion. I respectfully urge the following. Create a distinct ethnic identifier for Freedmen Americans within U.S. Census and OMB standards. Define this category by lineage, specifically, descent from black individuals enslaved in the United States prior to 1865. Include this category across all federal data systems, including civil rights monitoring, funding allocation, and demographic reporting. Defining Freedmen eligibility. Lineage-based identity. Individuals must have verifiable direct ancestry from black persons enslaved in the U.S. prior to the abolition of slavery in 1865. Genealogical depth. Descent typically spans 5 to 7 generations, with documentation from census records, oral histories, Freedmen's Bureau archives, slave schedules, and other sources. Geographical origin. Ancestors must trace back to U.S. slaveholding states, including those in the South, e.g., Virginia, Georgia, Mississippi, and border/northern states where slavery persisted before its abolition. Exclusion criteria. Descendants of post-1865 black immigrants from Africa, the Caribbean, South America, or elsewhere are not included in Freedmen categorization. Cultural identity. Distinct language, traditions, music, e.g., jazz, gospel, blues, cuisine, and shared experiences with segregation, redlining, and civil rights battles define Freedmen American heritage. Historical and cultural distinction. This request aligns with 21st century movements such as the Foundational Black American and American Descendants of Slavery, ADOS, initiatives. These emphasize that black Americans with ancestry tied to U.S. slavery form a unique ethnocultural group with distinct legal and moral claims. This identity is not merely about skin color, but about historical and genealogical lineage tied to the institution of slavery, systemic exclusion, and intergenerational struggle. Cultural customs, speech patterns, familial structures, and historic resilience are all central to the identity of Freedmen Americans. Public support and ongoing discourse. Public awareness and advocacy for Freedmen delineation are expanding rapidly. A Change.org petition is ongoing, and widespread national discourse is occurring across major platforms. Featured and debated on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and other media outlets. Entering congressional conversations and policy forums. Garnering increasing public favorability and social media engagement on platforms like X, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. This reflects the growing urgency to correct the omission of Freedmen Americans from federal data standards and ensure equitable representation. Why this matters. Data accuracy. Reflecting Freedmen Americans separately enhances clarity in understanding the nation's demographics. Policy development. Enables reparative policies and more accurate allocation of resources and protections. Historical justice. Acknowledges the multi-generational harm and persistent inequities resulting from U.S. slavery and post-emancipation policies. Cultural validation. Affirms the lived experiences, traditions, and identity of a people who helped build this nation.